Hello, welcome. Thank you for joining me today. I tried to come on last week to do a reading, and every time I had spare time, something would come up and just kept, kind of taking up the space. And I was like, oh, well, and then I realized like it was total guidance. It was total guidance because last week was so incredibly charged, especially where I'm at here in the United States after the election results and the town that I happen to be in. A lot of people were really, and I know a lot of people from the town listen to these readings as well. And so I have people that listen and that I connect with and love on both sides of the fence. And then lots of people that are in the middle and really neutral. And, so my intention is just to bring forth a message of unity and big picture, which is always the kind of mindset that I come from and speak from. So, but yeah, last week, a lot of people in town were really depressed and scared and, just like a lot of anger and a lot of charge. And I think it was just important to allow space for all of us to kind of like hold space for whatever it was that anybody was feeling, whatever those purges were and whatever those deep, dark moments that a lot of people were having, because that's really on the energetic level what this time is about in human evolution at this point, at this juncture, at this node point, is this purging of the darkness. And that's on all levels, a fractal, but most importantly where it counts the most and where it ripples the most is within ourselves. So whenever there's a character in our lives, and we can surely observe this in our individual lives, throughout the decades and years and even lifetimes, if we look back, the crunchiest and darkest of times were when we alchemize the most and when we heal the most. So here we are again, collectively, a lot of people feeling a crunch right now, whether it's because you're disappointed or whether it's just because you can't get away from the energy. Even if you're in a neutral space and you are kind of holding that higher frequency, it's like you're still going to feel the jostle in the field. You're going to feel it all. So we're all doing that alchemy right now, and really intense. And it feels like things are in a, I'm not going to say they've settled down, right? It feels like we're still very much moving through that process and adjusting to a new timeline. But anyway, I'm going to dive into the cards and kind of let them guide me about what to say today and how to say it. So overall energy for this reading: Beaver Spirit, lay a solid foundation. Yeah, exactly. And actually, that's what I was just going to say, that we've had this timeline shift. We were in a certain energy, and now we're moving into a different energy. And it's like we're acclimating to that. We're adjusting to a shift in the energetic. So if we look at everything big picture and we look at everything through energy, like forgetting for this reading, the concepts, the fears, the, what happened in the past, or, what we're told will happen in the future, or, all the ways we could project in a linear way. But if we go just on the energy and just on the cyclical nature of things, just what we know within our own bodies, our own psyches, our own journeys, and we apply those same understanding, that same wisdom to what's going on right now, then we can see that we're going through a shift, humanity and beyond, because again, what plays out in the physical, in the linear 3D story, is a reflection of the energy. We could say, oh, I'm feeling this way because of this specific event, but it's like this specific event is because of the energy, and we're feeling the way that we're feeling because the energy is catalyzing that. And we have players on the show, on the screen that get us to feel those things, but they're representing the energy, and we're representing the energy, and it's a dance and it's a symphony. Now it's time for the baritone, and then the baritone makes us feel a certain thing, but we were meant to feel that thing. And so even if you're not upset about, if you live in another country and you're not upset about the election results, or you're not upset about, anything world scale, although of course it affects everybody and everybody's watching, and but even people that are neutral, you might have something else in your life that's really digging in those areas that need to be dug into, and the way that we lay a solid foundation within ourselves and within our world. And this is very Plutonian too. So Pluto in Capricorn, in the very last degrees of Capricorn. We have one more week until it moves into Aquarius, finally, steadily for good, for the next 24 years or whatever it is, 24 years, 16 years, whatever it is. It's been in Capricorn since 2009, and I remember that because that's when I finally got out of my marriage. Pluto was like, hey, you need to lay a solid foundation. You have cracks in your foundation, which is funny because that's literally what I remember reading about Pluto in your sign, because I'm a Capricorn. where it's like wherever you have cracks in your foundation, it's going to be torn down so you can build something. So it's really interesting that that's the card that came up for us. So that's what's going on right now. Where the cracks are, it's crumbling, and it's all in service to a more solid foundation. And sometimes you need a catalyst. You need a catalyst wherever that comes for you. Whatever. Some people are really happy about what happened. They're really happy, and so they're getting their catalyst in another area. But wherever you might need it, wherever you have a crack in your foundation, where you need that perfect medicine, that perfect dark angel. And any of us that have had dark angels in their lives, I had a very dark angel, and I was a victim of it for a very long time, and I was really full of resentment and anger and hatred and polarization, and just fighting in courts for years and years and years, and now I'm on the other side of that. I'm alchemized the pain. I found my perpetrator inside of myself. I just did all this like deep cleansing work. And so when it comes to let's see, I want to be careful with my words, but when it comes to certain people that trigger disempowerment or trigger victim or trigger misogyny or whatever it is, any of those things, those stories, those appearances, those actualities, whatever it is that trigger those areas, it's like once we really heal from that, and once we really unite with a part of ourselves, like for me, I had to find the part of me that hated me, the part of me that rejected me, the part of me that didn't stand with me, and then be like, well, of course I was a match to you. Of course I was a match to this, and I had to heal up those cracks. I had to create a solid foundation where I was with me. And so anyway, until we do that, until we seal up all those cracks, we're going to be triggered, and those triggers are for us. And some triggers are wide scale. It's like all of humanity gets to be triggered. All of humanity gets to go into that dark night and find their divinity and find their spark and find their steadiness. Like, even if my worst fear comes true, I land in faith, because there's nowhere else to go. There's nowhere else to go but faith. I can torture myself in the stories, but who wants to do that? And, people have been doing that. We've been doing that for a really long time. And this is kind of a point where we're stopping to do that. So again, everything in service to a more solid sovereignty within ourselves, where we realize that we are at the helm of what we do with our thoughts, and what we do with our focus, and what we do with our energy, So, okay, I'm going to move on into the tarot. 7 minutes. All right. The Page of Air, clearing away the cobwebs for a clear view, So again, in a sense, this is the other side of the dark night of the soul, where you're churning and you're worrying, and all your worst nightmares come up, and everything that you prayed never would happen seems to be happening, and you play out all the fears, and you play them out, and you exhaust yourself, and you huff and puff in the corner of your room, and and then eventually it's like grace comes, and the clouds part, and dawn comes. You know how it is at night when you're just, you're going through whatever you're going through, and whether it's psychic attack, or whether it's a worry, or whether it's about yourself or someone else or the world, and then light comes, and you might have a dream, and you might feel refreshed from that dream, and all of a sudden you have this little spark of hope, that you didn't have before. You wouldn't have had if it wasn't for that alchemy that happened in wrestling with the darkness inside of you, and so again, there's that gratitude. I know some people might be offended or be angry with me, but I just have to speak from the space that I'm at, the gratitude for the dark players, at least at some point, it's a goal, it's a goal to strive towards, because then that is unification. When we clear off the cobwebs of victim and resistance and resentment, and the idea that anything can ever go wrong, and the veils are removed on that whole program and that whole conditioning, then what we see, again, is the symphony and the perfection of it. And we can be grateful for all the players and all the parts. And so there is that opportunity in this energy. That is what this energy is about on a large scale. It's about cleanup of the human shadow, cleanup of that which has been hidden. And of course, there's been so much conditioning into the linear and into the masculine energy, really, and it's funny because we can be upset about something external, and then because of the amnesia or the blind spots or the unalchemized places within ourselves, we can end up playing out the very energy that we're not liking in that person, we can play it out, we just become it. It's like the abuse cycle where, at some point, one of the children of the abuse cycle says, I'm not going to do this anymore. And what that means is making sure that you don't act in the same ways. And so my daughter and I have been going through a really deep healing because we both have the same wound from the same dark angel, where we can trigger that in each other because we have this trauma and we have this reaction to darkness, a reaction to anger, a reaction to just lack of integrity and all these things. And so we can kind of play out this dynamic and this wounding where we would never put up with that with anybody else in our lives, but it's each other, and we're actually like, we're like best friends. We've journeyed through lifetimes together, and we're here on mission together. And so it's like we're unraveling this trauma. Like if it wasn't for each other, we would probably, anytime anybody had any sort of like dark moment with us, they would be cut out. It'd be like, no more, you don't have any more access to my energy. But then there's no intimacy in that because we all have darkness and we all have those moments. And so we're able to hold that space for each other and heal that wound as well, remembering the love behind it. But again, so the healing of the abuse cycle, because when it comes at you, if you have that wound and it's not healed yet, then you can react in the exact same way. And that's what her and I do. We're like two, we're just playing out that pattern with each other, but we're seeing it and we're healing it and we're stopping it and we're choosing differently. But again, the unconscious reaction where you go to sleep and you're doing the very thing that's triggering you and you don't realize it. And so the importance of really going into that wound and taking responsibility for that on a really, really deep level. And it's hard, when everybody else is angry and diverting the energy outward and blaming and all this. It just creates more of it. It creates more of it. It puts it out into the energy field. And then again, we're creating that which we don't want, because the energy that we embody and that we put out is what we're contributing. That's our creation, So it's hard because it's contagious and you get around people and you get sucked into it, But so this was coming up in, I believe, the last reading, where the one that started with be fearless and bold, where it was like there was the temptation card, where there was the temptation to get sucked into this like freight train of energy, but to hold steady in your own alignment and in that larger, higher spiritual mission of truly healing and truly being a fractal of wholeness to create and to contribute to what's being created on a larger scale, and if we all stay in that polarity and that division and that fighting, then we can't say we're against war, if we're hating another for choosing differently, right? It's the game and it's the trap. And again, the reason why we get sucked into it is because we have unmet trauma. So when that trauma is kicked up through these players, to view it as an opportunity to stabilize our foundation and to clear away the cobwebs, to have that alchemy where you sit in it, you don't project it out, you don't like gather. You can if you want, of course, right? But it's like if we really want to contribute to the world, to contribute to creating a world that we all say we want, we need to bring it in and allow ourselves to be cracked open and to go into that fear where you're thrashing. I talk about this all the time, the sacred darkness, where you get to that point where you're in so much pain, you're in so much pain and so much fear and so much, and you don't want to hang on that threshold anymore, and finally you surrender. I mean, this card too, look, you just spread open those wings where you're just like, I surrender and I choose to trust in the greater glory of my divinity and the divinity of all of humanity. And I stop falling for this lower timeline, the fears of my own unresolved trauma and the fears of everybody else's unresolved trauma, continually recreating what we don't want. Anyway, I feel like there was something else maybe I was going to say in there, but I think I said enough. Yeah, exactly. So there's the magician, that's the alchemist. That is the one that can sit and turn towards that pain instead of writhing against it and resenting it and wanting to blame and feel like a victim. You're like, okay, let's fucking do this, This is where I claim myself. This is where I no longer have to hang on that threshold. I no longer have to play the game of duality and victim and blame and all this. I'm going to sit here and I'm going to use all of my power, all of my divinity. I'm going to use my water, my fire, my earth, my air, my ether, and I'm going to bring it all in like a sacred geometry, and I'm going to put everything that I'm resisting and hating and blaming and seeing as external, and I'm going to put it in my cauldron. I'm going to put it in my cauldron contained by the power of my own divinity, and I'm going to sit with it, and I'm going to alchemize it, and I'm going to let it do whatever it needs to do. I'm going to let it boil and spill over and burn me, and and in the end, I'm going to wake up. I'm going to wake up, and I'm going to feel this. And so we were talking about this the last time with the sacred darkness, and so I think the last two readings are still very, very relevant for the energies we're working with. But anyway, that sacred darkness, and how you'll cross a certain threshold. The first one's the hardest, but you feel and you connect with that surrender. That surrender. You know how to do it. And there will be more, and you do more and more and more until you're not triggered anymore. And then you're or if you are, you can move through very quickly, and then you can be a space holder of neutrality for others while they process through their trauma. And this is how we build this solid foundation. It starts first within ourselves. So I know that we know this. It's just hard to remember when we're doing one. When we're in the midst of our shadow, when we're in the midst of a place that's very dark that we haven't brought light to yet. So may this be a guide to you if you need it, and may it be a validation or because that's one of the things that I was sort of struggling with last week, was like I had this perspective, this higher perspective, and I saw this all as an opportunity. Energetically, I was having all these really, really powerful dreams. Like I knew that the opportunity that was being presented to humanity was so profound, and on really deep levels, and on the levels that I'm talking about. But I couldn't talk about that with anybody. I couldn't come on here and talk like that, because everybody was really triggered, and then just honoring that, because that's what it's about too. But I felt kind of lonely, and then that triggered stuff for me where I just can feel kind of alone, and just like that, like the woman who walks alone. My friend sent me a poem, an Alan Watts poem of like the woman that walks alone, and it's just like, just whatever it is that's triggering you, just a lot of that. And so the King of Pentacles, that's really beautiful. That is another card that would be the card in the tarot of a solid foundation. The King of Pentacles knows how to create a solid foundation in the physical realm. He knows how to take care of others. He knows how to hold space for others. And so again, this kind of being the invitation and the challenge right now in these energies to find that mastery within yourself, so that you can be a contributor to that which you actually want, that which you actually want, and you don't play out the abuse cycle by creating more of it in our realm. Okay, so let me do, I love this deck. It's an oracle deck. I forget what it's called, but it's really great. Oh yeah, there we go. The wing leader. Okay, so this is really a rallying call to like be that cutting edge, that pioneer on the edge of consciousness, and embody a different space. Like this is a message of don't get sucked into the collective currents, the collective energy, the collective shallow. Don't stay in the shallow end, go deep within yourself and represent riding on the edge, pushing those boundaries, pushing your own boundaries, pushing through that threshold so that you can find that solid center within yourself, and you can help to create and co-create that which we all want in this world. And it's not about the leaders. I know a lot of people know this, but I just feel to say this, the winged leader, it's not about the political leaders or the puppets in this realm, that are just playing their role, again, baritone now, violin now, whatever it is. It's like, we are the true winged leaders. We are the ones that are coming from a spiritual perspective. We have the opportunity to. So, the political realm and the world realm, and, it's materialistic, and it's divisive, and it's full of separation, and it's full of greed, and it's full of, lies and all this stuff. But it's like we are actually the ones that are creating the evolution of humanity. We're creating through our unification within ourselves, our unification within the parts of ourselves that have been conditioned and programmed and traumatized into forgetting the truth of reality, which is that we are creator beings, and that we create with our focus, we create with our thoughts, we create with energy, we create in thoughts and emotions, and everything are energy. And so when we are having those darker emotions, to remember that it's for the sake of alchemy and healing. So it's not that we're not feeling anger, or we're not feeling sadness, or whatever it is that's coming up, but we're feeling it with the higher perspective that we're alchemists, that we're magicians, that we're sovereign, and that we're laying a solid foundation within ourselves for the benefit of humanity, the true benefit of humanity, which we do inside of ourselves. The leaders don't do that. They don't do that. They haven't done this inside of themselves. Not to the degree at all, or that we are able to, and just remembering or learning or entertaining the fact wherever you're at on your soul journey, that we have the power within us, and that this is a quantum universe. It's not just this linear, third dimensional thing. It's cyclical, and so sorry, my mind went in a million different places. There was something that came up this morning about the spiraling cyclical nature of our activated spiritual beings, and how, and it reminded me of structured water. How water normally flows through, creek beds and rocks, and it breaks apart, and then it comes back together, and it breaks apart, and it comes back together, and it breaks apart, and it comes back together, just like our alchemies of falling apart and breaking apart, and it never stops, because the point is that we're supposed to be whole. We're supposed to have all of it. We're supposed to have the light and the dark. We're supposed to have the breaks, and we're supposed to stay in touch with all of it, versus like the municipal water that just runs through pipes, chunk, it's dead water, it just goes where it's told it's supposed to go, and and there's no life force in it, there's no energy in it. So to live a life without these breakdowns and these break aparts and these these alchemies, that's what brings us our life force back. That's what brings us into our power, our co-creative power, and the remembrance and the awakening that we're actually leading the edge, and that and it's like water, that structured water, whether it's the vortex that it goes through, whether it's through your units, your structured water units, or whether it's in nature where it's falling over those rocks, and again the vortexing and the breaking apart and the coming back together. It's activated, it's swirling, it's alive, it holds codes, it holds memory, so it's very similar, it's very symbolic to what we're doing, and to stay alive, we need to break apart, and we need to not resist those times and blame others for getting in the way of our vacation, or getting in the way of whatever linear thing that we're going down the corralled into, that's supposed to look like this. It's like, no, it's supposed to fall apart. It's supposed to have periods of rise and periods of fall, and like that's what's natural in this realm. So okay, let me move on. It's remembrance, and the chariot, and so moving forward. So again, moving forward, out on that edge, moving forward. But we move forward when our light and our dark are integrated, when we're not rejecting any of them. We're not rejecting anything. We're not rejecting anyone. If we want inclusivity and everything that we say we want, then that applies to everything. That applies to the darkness as well. That applies to our own darkness. That applies to the darkness of others. That applies to the things that break us open, break us up, so that we can restructure and activate ourselves, activate our DNA into the wholeness. And so again, we've been so conditioned into a linear, masculine, solar, one side of the coin, productive, and so the messy mud and blood of the feminine. This is what we were talking about in that last in that last reading, and I really went into it in part 2, where it was like, oh my gosh, some of us came coded with more of that dark, more of that divine feminine energy, and if you came in like that, and you had one catastrophe after another, and you were breaking apart and restructuring the waters within yourself over and over again, you inevitably had to deal with self-hatred, because our society tells us that that is wrong, you know, and you're supposed to be productive and linear. You're supposed to have it all together, and it's supposed to go the way you think it's supposed to go. And yet you can't truly move forward with spirit, with that lotus intact. Where does the lotus come from? You know, it thrives in the mud. It thrives in the mud, and that's the activated spiritual center. That's the activated Merkaba. That's being in attunement with both the light and the dark, the cyclical nature, the nature of duality, and embracing it all, and not rejecting it, not feeling like a victim when it comes along in your life, or in life, and not rejecting those that represent it, right? Embracing it all, embracing the whole symphony, because this is about unification. The evolution of humanity is about coming back to the truth of reality, which is that we're safe, you know, that we're safe, and that this is a divine play, and to surrender, to truly surrender. And so again, that's what I talk about a lot in these readings, is surrendering to those thresholds when you feel like you're going to break or die, and saying, okay, even if I do break or die, I would rather break or die, because my soul is eternal and my soul gains from these experiences, than stay in the pipe of that municipal water. We want to be alive. We want to be alive to what's true, and this is how we do it. This is how we do it. So yeah, so great opportunity right now. Yeah. Okay, so let's see. How long did I talk for? 25 minutes. I might keep this kind of short, but so we have the Seven of Coins, the Seven of Pentacles. So this is a card of process, you know, and again, talking about the cyclical nature of things. You plant the seed gets planted underground. It's very dark. It gets covered up, you know, it's compressed, and yeah, you water it, you tend to it, you know, you don't water it too much, but you know, it's like you honor that process of darkness. And look, she's there and she's watering, and then, you know, the process of eventually it comes up out of ground, and then you got to be kind of delicate and tender with it. And that's actually what I've been feeling the last week, I would say, or the last few days, just this like tenderness and this rawness and this delicateness. And we could say, oh, you know, it's because we're scared, or we're, you know, triggered or whatever, but what it actually is there's this new potential, you know, this new thing that has grown from the soil, and we're adjusting to it, you know, we're finding out who we are in relation to it. We're finding out what our choices are and what our options are, and, you know, a lot of that empowerment opportunity like I was talking about. But it's kind of tender right now, you know, it's kind of tender, it's kind of vulnerable. We kind of a lot of kind of like that lost at sea energy, where it's like it's a beginner's mind, where you're like you have to learn, you know, the first day of your job, and you're getting oriented, and you got to remember stuff. And you know, my daughter was trying to teach me, she's learning piano, so she was teaching me some stuff, and I had to remember what she told me, and I had to, you know, try it out. And my brain was like, you know, my two hands doing different things, and you know, my brain was, you know, getting kind of tired and stuff like that. And it's like just this process, and honoring that process, and honoring where we're at right now in that process, where we might be feeling vulnerable, and we might be feeling scared just from that vulnerability, not even from the stories that we might be telling ourselves, just from the energetics of right now, where there's this new thing, and we don't know where it's going, and we don't know what's going to happen. And you know, it's like it's so if you are attuned to energy, then you're going to be feeling that as well. And often, you know, like I used to always feel anxiety when the sun would go down. I don't know if it was like a past life thing of like, oh, you got to get back in the cave, or you know, whatever it was. I'd always feel it, and then I'd be like, oh, I feel anxious, and then I'd look around in my life to figure out why I felt anxious, and I could find things that I felt anxious. But you know, earlier at noon, I wasn't anxious about, like, no, those things were fine. They were all fine. I wasn't worried about it at all. And finally, I realized, oh, I just feel anxious when the sun goes down. So now, you know, I light many decades later, I'm not that old, but I light ambiance lighting, you know, and I light candles, and I'm just kind of like, okay, you know, like we know how to work the energy to make it, to like smooth into this transition, right? So the transitions can make us feel a little uncomfortable, you know, and then we might look to the outer world or blame the outer world. But if we're speaking just on an energetic level, and we're speaking just in that that symphony and that node point where it was time for this certain thing, then it's part of the divine play, and it's perfect, and we can embrace it. We don't have to resist it, and we can figure out how to maneuver with it by honoring our feelings of vulnerability, and honoring, again, without the stories, just like, oh, the energy feels like this. The energy feels like this. And so then, we don't have to blame anything external. We can flow with the energy and do things to nurture and support ourselves while we acclimate and stabilize and find our stability in this shift. And again, the what's happening in the world is a reflection of the shift. The shift isn't happening because of what's happening in the world. It's the other way around. The energy comes first. The energy came first. The energy of the collective consciousness of humanity has called for a change, and this is the form that it's taking. There are no mistakes. There are no mistakes. And darkness is not a mistake, and it's not an aberration or conflict or darkness within ourselves, or whatever it is. It's all part of this unraveling, part of the process, which is this card. It's part of the process. So there's the individual process with this now moment, but then there's the greater process of the cycle of the ages, the yugas, the golden age that we're coming into, the shift of the ages, and all of this being a part of it, big picture, and honoring the triggers as well, right? So embracing it all. That's unification. That's true unification, is embracing it all, even that which we do not like within ourselves, within others, within our stories, within our history, and within the reactions and thoughts and beliefs of others, all of it, embracing it all, knowing that it all has its place. Again, and only when we have that embracing of all, both the light and the dark parts of ourselves in the world, does that activation happen, where we're creating from our God center, we're creating from our empowerment, we're creating from our divine spark, not from where we're told to go and what we're told is supposed to be happening, or what we're told is a good thing to create. We're creating from our own connection, our own divinity, our own inner urge. We're pulling back our energy, and that's another thing I always talk about in these readings, is being soul-led, being soul-guided, even if it doesn't match what other people are doing or saying, but taking the time to really go within and to find the guidance that's right for us. And we can only find that if we're unified within ourselves, which again means embracing our own darkness, embracing what's going on in the world, and knowing that that's the portal into that activation. So really huge opportunity to not only do this, but to talk about it. It's like that's where the plug is. That's I normally I'm like, oh, I don't want to do laundry or anything while I'm doing or reading, but I really needed to do it today, and I'm like, oh, that's fine, because the buzzer will go off at a certain time and it will mark a certain thing. So right as I was saying, that's where the plug is. It's beep 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 ding ding ding. It's like that's where the electrical outlet is. That's where you have your fingers in the socket of God. Is when you shit, I forgot what I was gonna say, but you heard me, right? You can always rewind a little bit. I'll remember what I was going to say then too. I don't remember, but it was highlighted. Whatever I was saying, that's the opportunity right now. That's the opportunity, yes, to talk about these things, to talk about the importance of embracing everything. It's like there's a node point right now where it's possible to do this. For a lot of people, some of us have had really, 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 really dark shit going on in our lives, and we've already kind of gone into the darkest and the worst of our nightmares, and found that we're okay, and we found this, and we found the unification and the way to embrace it all. But for a lot of humanity, so there are different waves of awakening, different waves of ascension. So this being the second or the third wave, there's a huge amount of people right now that are being offered the opportunity right now to awaken to their divinity in a way that no other. You have to have the worst of the worst. If this is the worst of the worst for you, then celebrate, because on the other side of that is the dawn of your own empowerment and the dawn of your own ability to spark and activate your spiritual centers, so that you can be creating not only a life that reflects your soul, but the wider you're contributing to the greater creation of humanity and society that reflects soul. That's the way that we do it. We do it from within each and every one of us. And so, whatever those crunches are in your life, some of us have already had them, some of us have had precursors to them. But if this is a time where it's really dark for you, and again, like that, it seems that this is a huge awakening, with that indicator, with that buzzer, and saying, and me saying this is a time, where this is a real opportunity. It's like, it's okay. So the other day I had a psychic attack in the middle of the night, and I haven't had that in a while. It's been a little while, and I don't know how long, months, half a year, I don't know, but maybe just a couple months, I don't know. But anyway, it was pretty intense. It was pretty intense, and it was really, really visceral. And I woke up, and sometimes, there you can tell when it's an actual when it's an actual attack with energies, and when you're just processing something kind of dark, because you feel energies in your room, and like as I was starting to fall asleep, before I cleared it, I felt this sort of like, like this certain energy where it's like something's like coming in you. That's how it feels like to me, like something's trying to like get in. And so in the dream, I was in this house where I often dream it's like my haunted house, in my dream. It's some astral location that I get sucked into sometimes, but it presents like a certain house. And so there was this hallway, and there was this chair, like this Victorian house. There's this chair that was floating through, and it came down, and I was just like, fuck, like, we got some demons here. And then my daughter's cat came, and he was possessed, and he was coming towards me, and he was snuggling with me, and I was kind of like, like, I love this cat, and it was sweet that he wanted to snuggle, but I had the thought, like, is this trying to get at me? Is it trying to latch on to me by having me, embrace it, right? Which is a paradox, because on the one hand we're saying embracing the darkness, right? But on the other hand, it's like you have to be cognizant of the game. You're embracing the fact that it exists. You're embracing the fact that it has a role to play, but you're not embracing it where you're completely oblivious to the games it's playing, and so the ways it's trying to manipulate and take you over, so there's that discernment, but you embrace the fact that you embrace the role that it has. You embrace the role that it has without completely merging with it, like completely merging with your anger, your fear, and going and yelling at people or hating people or espousing a bunch of like just like kind of like childish tantrumy type things. You're irresponsible. You're allowing it. You're witnessing it through that higher perspective. Okay, so just to clarify that. But the cat, I was like, well, I felt like it was trying to manipulate me into holding it and merging my energy field with it, so it could move inside of me. And so and then I woke up. And then as I started to fall back to sleep, I felt the energy trying to merge inside of me. So I was like, okay. So I casted it out. My usual kind of like prayer thing, command that I do wasn't really working. So I called on Archangel Michael. And so the reason why I'm bringing this up, I'll get to in a minute. But so I saw him. I felt and saw his sword come through. There's the buzzer again, straight through the house, where it was this powerful moment of absolute, just like the buzzer, complete alchemy transmutation clearing, and so when it comes to stuff like that, we can call in assistance, right? But the thing is, I saw it cyberblast out through the neighborhood and wider, where I realized, I knew in that moment, because usually when I have some kind of psychic attack like that, like I wasn't careful with my energy, maybe I connected with somebody that had some stuff attached to them and I didn't clear, or I was doing heavy moving in my house, which is where I do energy work, and I didn't clear, or a neighbor was going through something and it like latched onto me because I'm connected with them psychically, whatever it is, I can usually see where it was from, but there was nothing like that with this. And so it felt like a collective darkness. And so this is interesting. This is coming up. I was wondering if I was going to get into this, but I guess I am. And so, when we speaking of, where we're in our darkness, but we're not holding the light at the same time, and that's where again the alchemy happens. That's where we spark our spiritual center. We are with our darkness. We're embracing our darkness, but without forgetting our light, right? Without forgetting the bigger picture. Without forgetting, again, that process and that cyclical process of everything. And then in that moment we're alchemizing. But if we're with our darkness and we're not with our light at the same time, then we're actually putting out more darkness. And that and I believe that's what I was feeling. I feel like there's a lot of unchecked darkness right now, from the individuals, again, because this is about the individuals and about our individual power and about the opportunity for all of humanity right now, or any time that we're triggered and some of our deepest wounds are coming up, unchecked and without consciousness and without appreciation and gratitude for the whole journey, again, the whole process. The Seven of Pentacles, we feed the very energies that we're mad about. We add to them, we create them, and then we also feed the astral entities that need that. They need those darker emotions. And a lot of what goes on in our world is to stoke and provoke and entice and create from us, to get humans to create and have negative emotions, to trigger that unprocessed trauma, so that we put that energy out. And it's like a feeding, it's a bowl. It goes into the bowl, and then they come and they feed, because they're disembodied beings. They're disembodied beings, and they sustain themselves on negative emotion. And so, anybody that says that darkness isn't real, well, it's that polarization. You might be only in the light, where you don't acknowledge the darkness, but again, true mastery and true activation of our spiritual centers comes from acknowledging both. So seeing and acknowledging that there's darkness in everyone and in everything, but seeing it again with that discernment, embracing that it exists, because that's the realm. If we don't acknowledge and embrace and accept the fact that it exists, then we have no boundary. We can be taken over. We can be mind controlled. We can be led, through the corral. We lose our life force. So it's like the acknowledgement and the awareness and the acceptance of the fact that there's darkness and evil in this realm. Is very, very important to come into our power and our alchemy. But so a lot of the people that aren't acknowledging the extent of the darkness on this planet, when you get pulled into yours and you're unprocessed, you're adding to it, and again, you're adding to the very thing that you're rejecting and that you don't want. So yeah, I feel like I'm saying it enough times over and over again in different angles that it's clear for those of you that might not have thought of this in this way, where again, we're watering what we want. We're watering that consciousness. We're watering that self-awareness. We're watering, we're bringing it in. Every time we pour water on, hatred or anger or that's what we're feeding. That's what we're feeding. Not only are we feeding by creating it in the world, but we're feeding those entities, those disembodied entities, that they're the tricksters. They're the tricksters that come. And if you're in a dark space without enough light and without enough consciousness, then and you have a lot of fear, they'll come and they'll feed and they'll poke you and they'll taunt you. I've had it my whole life. I used to actually hear what they would say, and I would feel them, and the walls would be dripping. It's like when you see behind, you see behind. You see behind the light, you see behind the dark. And so it's like nobody can tell me it's not real, because I've seen it, I've felt it, I've heard it. I've witnessed it. I've been lost to it. I've been held under by it, and yet it only has power if we give it power. And the tricky part is that we can give that darkness power. If we don't acknowledge that it's there, we can give it power without knowing that we are. And a lot of that is just being sloppy with our reactions and our energy. And yeah, but so anyway, I feel like there is a lot of feeding. There's a lot of darker energy. So if you are energetically sensitive, you're probably feeling that. You might be feeling it in your dream space in the nighttime. You might just be feeling kind of like, I just feel like everything's wrong, and getting kind of sucked into that collective energy, because a lot of people are feeling everything's wrong, and just this belief and this like mindset and this hijack on reality, that things aren't written and everything's chaotic, and we are victims, and bad things happen, but they happen in service. They happen in service to our soul's growth, and our souls have chosen this. It's like we all have our perfect soul journey, and we can surrender to it and trust it. It's not that everything's perfect. There's only there's only this, and we get to walk on right. No, we're gonna have this. We're gonna have both. But that there's not a problem with that. It's not a problem. This is the world of duality, and our souls know this, and that we're safe through all of it, no matter what happens in our individual journeys or in our world journeys. And the more that we can come back into as in like from the higher ages, a lot of us have never been in that energy for very long, but the goal to really stabilize in that energy of, even when something bad is happening, you're trusting, you're knowing the process, you're understanding the process, and you're understanding that this is all part of a larger picture that's playing out, and so then we're not recreating it, we're not feeding it, we're not making it harder for ourselves. Okay, so I'm going to pull a goddess of the moon oracle. We're at 43 minutes. I'll probably start wrapping up I know I said that earlier. Acceptance, exactly. Okay, so we're going to close on that. Exactly. Accepting it all, and the relief and the release that comes in that surrender. And again, not accepting it. That's what I was saying about the darkness. You're not accepting it as in like you're rolling over, or you're just going along with everything. You're accepting the reality as it is. You're accepting the reality, and then you're able to you're not rejecting anything. You're not rejecting. You're not resenting. You're not in victim. You're coming into your power. And it's not even like, oh, a bad thing happened and I accept it. It's like I accept that everything that's happening is part of this greater process, and realizing that the greater process at this point is the alchemy of our own unprocessed shadow. If we process our shadow, and it's obviously, we're working on it this whole lifetime, maybe probably other lifetimes since we were in the darker ages, it's just, we've just been playing it out, and warring and, killing people and killing ourselves, it's just like persecutor, victim, like all the way. But this is the lifetime where we're bringing it all back home, and all of that being guided, again, the cyclical nature of things. When you're in the dark ages, there's a lot of dark, and you're coming into the higher ages, and where we're at right now in this evolution, in the cyclical nature of things is that we're bringing them into balance, and we're embracing all. And that's where a lot of the inclusivity and, all of the, embracing everyone, it can be hijacked, where it's like, well, yes, we're embracing everyone, but not you, because you're representing, a darker fraction. It's like taking it wider, and just shaking off the spell, shaking off the spell. And again, kind of like what we were talking about last time, if you listened, or you might want to listen if you haven't, because it feels really relevant right now, just kind of staying in your own lane and not getting sucked into, because there's a lot of collective energy, there's a lot of unprocessed energy going on, there's a feeding frenzy with the lower astral, and it's like, just wow, the way to get through this is to really tend to your own, your own foundation, your own alchemy, your own level, and the portal to that is acceptance, but true acceptance, spiritual acceptance, and that does activate your higher centers, where you have access to sight, and to knowing, and to a perception, and an ability to perceive, and this is a fort card as well. That's also a card of stability. To perceive, I'm just looking at the other cards, the other numbers here, 5, 10, 12. Okay, so but to perceive from a higher vantage point, so just going through that portal, the portal of your own pain. We just had 11/11. What's today? Was that yesterday? I don't know. I can't track time. My daughter and I had an appointment. We have an appointment every Thursday at 11, and we completely forgot. And it was Saturday, and we were like, did we even go to that appointment? It's just like, woo, like everything is up in the air. But again, we are transitioning into a different frequency. There are a lot of portals going on. So again, a lot of darkness, a lot of all that. But if you can remember that, again, just like the 11/11 portal, we're moving into, there's an access point for those of you that haven't gone through this yet, into a higher frequency, a higher dimensional frequency, where you are unified, and you're able to create from that space, and you're outside of the threshold of that fourth dimensional wobble and that dance with darkness. You can go through it in these energies, and there's a lot of support for that. And again, the way to do it is to accept the opportunity that's in front of you, accept all the players, accept all the sounds, all of it. Inclusivity, true inclusivity. So, all right, I'm going to pull one goddess card to end on. It's always nice to end on a goddess card. And I know I said I was going to end on acceptance, but then I said a bunch more, and so now I want the closing, nurture, exactly, and nurturing yourself and nurturing others, because a lot of people are triggered. A lot of these wounds are coming up, and it is really hard. And any of us that have had really deep trauma, how painful it is when it's triggered and you can't see. That's what PTSD is. You're reacting to something from long ago, and some of us have trauma that isn't even really in this life. It's from other lifetimes. Of course, we have stuff in this lifetime as well that links up with that, but it's like we can be reacting and feeling things to a degree that we don't understand, that we don't remember, and you can feel completely lost, and to just know that that's part of what a lot of people are going through, yourself, ourselves, or others, and to just be really, really nurturing and gentle. And that's kind of what I was talking about also. Like, too much spit in my mouth. Choking. Yeah, let me just swallow. Yes, and so the seed that's coming up right now, in terms of this opportunity, which is interesting because Demeter also, she tends the crops. She tends the crops. She's the nurturer. She's these two together. She's the Queen of Pentacles type of energy where she's very nurturing. But this a Pentacle card as well, where you are watering that garden. You're watering your own garden. You're tending to your own process, your own tender seeds, and those of others, and realizing that as well, to not trample on other people, to just love us all, love us all, love everybody. Again, that inclusivity. So, all right, well, thank you so much for watching, if you chose to. And yeah, and for either already holding this space and resonating with this message, or entertaining the idea and taking steps towards true embodiment of all of everything that's here, and being that portal into creating the world that we would all like to see, and not getting sucked into unprocessed darkness, and not getting sucked into the evil in this world that preys on that and likes to perpetuate it, so that we don't come into this power, and that we don't create outside of the realms, and that higher realm where all of this can actually fall away, through integration, through integration and acceptance of it all, where the fight is over, because there's nothing to fight, because it's all included, and it's all worked with, and it's all embraced. And so, all right, much love to you all, in this powerful, exciting, intense, crunchy, alchemical time. And I'll see you next time if I do.